Hey everyone, I'm back in the bathroom here, and today what I'm talking about is how I'm going to be putting this subfloor back together. And so, what I did next, the next step after I got all the nasty and old plywood out of here, uh, the next thing I did was kind of just clean this up a little bit. I still have a little bit more work to do. But what I did was I sprayed all the wood down with the product called Concrobium. I got that at Home Depot, and it's a mold controller and preventer. And I just went around and just sprayed all the wood, saturated it with that product, and let it sit for a couple days. And then the next step was to put some blocking in place. And blocking, what that is it firms up the new plywood that's going to be going in. It gives it a nice foundation for the plywood. Because the plywood that was here before was probably one or two sheets across the whole floor, and now that I'm putting a bunch of patch pieces in, I really need to give the floor some stability. So what I did was took some 2x4s, this 2x4 here. I attached some angle brackets to those 2x4s, set those down like on a table in the garage, made sure that they, the ends of the 2x4 and the brackets lined up correctly, and then just screwed into the 2x4, attached those brackets, and came in the bathroom and attach this blocking to the joist. And you want to make sure that the blocking here, this is flush with the top of the joist here. And like places like over here, because I couldn't see underneath the plywood, obviously, I was having a tough time with, well, how do I place this so that I can make sure that I can screw into the plywood on this side and into the top of the blocking, and then also make sure that I have enough material left to screw my patch piece into this part of the blocking. So what I did was I measured halfway across the top of the blocking, which is 1.5 inches for a 2x4. Measured halfway there, which is that makes it 3/4 of an inch, and made a line all the way across, so you can kind of see a faint line there. And so that I know that 3/4 of an inch from this edge to somewhere over here, I have enough. That tells me where I can actually screw in without missing the blocking. So I have some screws to attach over there, same thing over there, some blocking here, some here, and then I also put blocking around the pipes over here too, and I'll talk a little bit in a second about why I did that. Blocking over there and that part of the subfloor, and then blocking right here also. So how I attached the angle brackets to the joist once I got into the bathroom, I had a dilemma with, well, how do I get into some of these really tight spaces, like for example here. I wasn't going to be able to do that with my cordless drill driver. And so what I decided to do is I did some research online, and I said, oh, what's this thing called a palm nailer, which is this tool here. So this is a palm nailer, and what that allows you to do, really, it's got a little magnet on the end, so you can put your nail on there, position this in place like this, and then it just pneumatically sets your nail for you. You have to really be careful though to make sure that your nail is going in straight, or else it'll bend on you. But that worked really well for a lot of those tight spaces. So got all my blocking in place, and then I made some cuts based on, like I think I told you this before. If I didn't, I'll kind of reiterate. This is kind of an L shape. So being an L shape and everything being squared up, I wanted to make sure this one section here was all one big piece of plywood, and then this section over here was another piece of plywood. I didn't want to have a bunch of tiny little cuts or tiny little pieces of plywood making up the new subfloor. I wanted to make it as sound and as stable as possible. So here's the one piece, and I made a plunge cut in the middle using the VersaCut. That piece is going to go in this area here. Then I made a second board to go in this section over here. And I said, well, how am I going to deal with these pipes here? So what I did to deal with the pipes, and again, I treated it as one section, one piece of wood. And then I measured, you know, from the edge of the wood, or the existing subfloor, to the pipe on all sides. Did the same thing for both pipes. And then, so that's kind of the result here. And then what I did was I made a cut all the way down this way. So I spliced the wood, or sliced the wood in half, somewhat in half. And so that these two pieces of wood will sandwich around those two pipes. So let me kind of show you real quick how this all goes together. So I'm going to drop this one in place here. So that one's in there. Got the first piece in. And then this second piece, so I got three pieces essentially. This will go on the back like this. That drops in. And then this other piece here, that drops in the front. See, I'll step back. You can see the whole floor is all put together. And got a little bit of a gap in there, which is good. I'm going to give the plywood a little bit of space to breathe, or to flow or to move. And so yeah, we're pretty much done with this now. I have a little bit of a gap around each one of the pipes, just in case the floor moves a little bit. I probably could have made a little bit more space around this 3.5-inch pipe, but I sanded some of that out, so I think it's okay. And then also what I'm doing now is I'm putting insulation in. I had some leftover insulation in the garage from when the crawl space was done previously, so what I'm doing is just putting in some insulation between all these pieces of blocking and just everywhere else on the floor here, because the crawl space is really cool. There's a lot of cool air running through there. And because I couldn't get to the crawl space, I really don't like being down there. What I decided to use instead, to put the insulation in place, was to use these wire, what are they called? Let's see here, what are these things called? These are called insulation supports. Got those at Home Depot. And I had to cut those to length in some of these areas. And I just used these cutters here to do that. Took a little bit of effort to do that. And the cutters really aren't made for this kind of gauge of wire. That's pretty thick stuff. It's pretty strong. But they have little barbs on the end, so they attach to the wood. And then you just drop the insulation in like this. And it keeps the insulation from falling all the way through. So, that's it from here. Next video also I'll be talking about, I'll be talking a little bit how I secured the floor down, and then also how I rebuilt the sill underneath the wall here too. So, thanks for watching.